Hey, what's up, y'all? We've put together a pretty fun and informative Zoom conversation for you. Myself and Chris Ermides from This Old House and 5 trade apprentices talk about what it's like to be an apprentice. First, I'm going to introduce everybody, and then we're going to jump right into the Zoom call. First on the lineup is Dave Buffini. He's an apprentice carpenter with a Concord Carpenter with us, and Dave has been drawn to the carpentry trade since he was a young kid, but he didn't join the trades until January 2019. Prior to this, Dave worked as a Spanish teacher. He taught Spanish for 8 years. And as a teacher, he noticed the trades were not really represented well to students as a viable career path. Dave's decision to begin a career in carpentry was based on both a deep desire in the craft as well as a passion to promote the trades to people. And he's doing it now with our Green to Great video series. If you get a chance, check those out. Now, Chris Ermides has had a long career in the trades, and that started when he was back in high school, working with his father. His father owned a hardware store, and summers working for a remodeling contractor. From there, Chris worked as a carpenter for a custom home builder and remodeling contractor, and then as a project manager. He was a staff editor at Fine Home Building, and he covered tools for JLC as the editor of Tools of the Trade magazine. Chris is currently working as the pro-to-pro editor at This Old House, where he produces digital content and is the host of the New Idea House series. Welcome, Chris. He's a friend, and we love having him. Next is Carolyn Riccardi. Carolyn lives in Hudson Valley, the town of New Paltz, New York. She's a carpenter apprentice and a climbing guide. And when she's not building things, she's climbing frozen waterfalls. Then there is Will Krentler. Hopefully I said that right. Will is an electrician's apprentice from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Will is 20 years old, and he has been working in the electrical field for about a year now. He also is in the electrical or electricians union, and he's dabbled in carpentry work with his dad since he was a kid. Next on deck is Thomas Grace. Tom is 26 years old. He's a carpenter apprentice in British Columbia, Canada. And Tom got started in the apprentice program as a way to kickstart his path to becoming a master builder. And he's now in the tail end of that apprenticeship. Tom moved from Quebec in Eastern Canada all the way over to British Columbia at the age of 20 to train as a national level rower. And this is where he found a really cool, great trade school to pursue his apprenticeship. So welcome, Tom. All right, we have Kyle Davies. Kyle is a 26-year-old apprentice carpenter from the United Kingdom. Kyle found himself starting a career in cabinetry and woodworking, fine woodworking. And 11 months into the program, he had a change of heart. So Kyle basically moved his focus towards carpentry and residential remodeling instead. And so now Kyle attends college. He does it 1 day a week to learn the skills required that he can apply them in his trade. And then Kyle's company that he works for is super supportive, and they've given him all kinds of opportunities where he can further his learning. I feel like Europe and the UK, they do it right with the trades. Okay, we have Colin O'Kane. Colin is a 20-year-old Finnish carpenter apprentice. Colin got into the trades when he started to do volunteer work for his high school theater department. While volunteering to build stage sets and things like that, he worked with and was inspired by a carpenter who got him into the trades. Pretty cool. All right, let's just start the meeting. Ready? Let's go. So real quick, we'll just do a quick hello so you know who's who. Dave, why don't you start?
Hi, everybody. I'm Dave Buffini, and I'm an apprentice carpenter with a Concord Carpenter with Mr. Robillard.
Chris?
Hey, I'm Chris Ermides. I'm one of the editors and producers at This Old House.
Carolyn?
Carolyn Riccardi, carpenter's apprentice at Rock and Wood, New Paltz, New York.
Kyle?
Hi, I'm Kyle Davies. I'm from United Kingdom, London. I'm an apprentice carpenter.
Will?
I'm Will Krentler. I'm 20 years old, and I'm an electrician in the union, and I live in Pennsylvania.
All right, and last but not least, Thomas.
Hey guys, I'm Tom, apprentice carpenter up in Victoria, BC with a custom home builder.
Awesome. All right, let me start the questions off. We're going to kind of the format will be I'll ask a question, Dave will ask a question, and Chris will ask a question. We'll probably ask three of you, maybe all four of you, the question, and then we'll probably bounce it around just a little bit. Sound okay?
Yep.
So, Carolyn, what got you interested in the trades? How did you get started, and did you have any experience getting into it?
So I'm a climbing instructor, and there's always been this symbiotic relationship between the building trades and climbing. And so I knew a building contractor, and I was looking for some work, and he knew that I could climb ladders and scaffolding, and so he gave me a shot.
You're definitely not afraid of heights if you're climbing.
That's a great thing. That's a great gift. Yeah.
Awesome. How about Kyle? What about you? What got you in the trades?
What got me into the trade was my family. My dad's always been a carpenter, and I always looked up to him, and I always thought, do you know what would be a cool thing to get into? So I basically started doing an apprenticeship with a previous company, and then moved over to a more specialised area, and then yeah, I've been progressing ever since.
I've always wanted to be a carpenter too, but I can't say it. Hey, how about you, Will?
Well, when I was little, we put an addition on our house. So for the past like 15 years, I helped my dad with that. So then like high school came around, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And they said like trades. And I was like, yeah, let's do it.
Your parents said that?
Yeah, my dad did. Yeah, because I don't do well in school.
Okay. So
Was your dad in the trades?
No, but he like, I don't really know how he knew it all, but somehow he did. And he put an addition on our house, like 2 stories.
I think that's great. Push you in that direction.
Yep.
Dave was 8 years. Somebody has their speaker really loud, I think. Check your volume. Dave was a school teacher for like 8 years. And Dave, in your experience, I mean, you didn't see that, right? You didn't see parents promoting that.
I had quite a few parents who were contractors in various trades, and you know, many of them wanted their kids to go to college. It's not that they were against their kid getting into the trades as well, but there was a very big emphasis on the college track.
Yeah. Chris, what about you? Do you see that? I mean, in your experiences?
Yeah, when I was a teacher for about 40 years. About 20 years ago in North Carolina, and it was the same thing. You know, there's a lot of varied experiences and backgrounds of the demographics of the school, but most of the parents were very, very eager to have their kids go to college, and the trades weren't really an option that was talked about much then. So I'm very glad to see that that's happening in other places now. It's really cool. It's very cool. I try to tell all my friends, I'm you know, a lot of my friends have kids who are getting ready for college or college age, and I'm trying to open their minds to it as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, there's great opportunities if you do it right. We could talk about that a little bit further as we go along. Thomas, how'd you get in?
So I moved to it took me to move to the other end of the country to get into the trade. I always knew that I wanted to do something with my hands and something related to building. So I joined this trade school here in Victoria that starts you off. They call it a foundations program, and it's a 6-month program. And they kind of take you up from not having much knowledge or any knowledge up to a point where you could go join a crew and, you know, prove yourself valuable to that crew. So that's kind of how I started. So it was through a bit of schooling and then joining a company shortly thereafter. But you know, growing up, my parents, they're not handy whatsoever and stuff. And my family, it just doesn't happen in my family that anyone's handy. So I just kind of had to go do it on my own, and, you know, you just make it happen. So that's how it started.
Awesome. You moved West Coast, I would guess you'd call it, right? To be a rower?
Yeah, exactly. So I was trying to get onto the national team, but eventually, you know, when you have to spend three trainings a day, there's not much time to, you know, go work and kind of support yourself. So at some point you just got to make a choice, right? Are you going to, you know, pursue a career or something that's more of a hobby? And, you know, you just make the decision. And
I just want to say my 5 minutes at the gym that I spend on the rower is like torture. It's like equalizer.
Brutal. It's brutal exercise. Yeah.
Oh man. Dave, you're up.
So Carolyn, what have you enjoyed the most so far in your apprenticeship?
I would say 2 things. One is there's an exactitude to the work that we do and an attention to detail that is constantly pushing me. And I also think that we are forced to think on our feet, and we're constantly thrown different projects and tasks. And so for the first year or so, it's been super overwhelming. And I feel like it's taken some time for me to get a handle on it, but it's been great.
Carolyn, do they, overwhelming, so I'm just focusing on that one word, that's what I heard. Are they giving you a list of things to do, or like do this, this, and this, and you've never done it before? There's no direction or instruction? Or how does that work?
In my company, you're assigned essentially like to a lead carpenter. And so that's been really great. I work with a younger Canadian guy who has been, building things since he was a kid, and he is extremely generous. And so he is my boss, who's the general contractor, gives us tasks, and then I'm the cut person, or assist in whatever project we're doing. And over time, I've been able to add my input, which has been really fun, and get taken seriously both by the lead carpenter and by my boss, the general carpenter.
Awesome.
It's been cool. It's really cool.
It certainly is a satisfying feeling to get that recognition from your lead carpenters or, your supervisors on site.
Totally.
Definitely a good feeling.
Kyle,
what have you enjoyed so far? Sorry?
Something you get from Rob all the time, right?
Of course. Yeah, of course. Kyle, how about you?
So I do a lot of remodeling projects where I'm working. So I work in inner London. So the stuff I do, we work from a shell inwards. So we're taking, where I'm working at the moment, we're taking a shell and we're building out offices, we're building out second levels. So I have to be very adaptive where I work at the moment. So one day I'm doing stud work, the next day I could be doing flooring, I could be working on a roof. I work also, same as Carol, with a lead carpenter. So I follow him in his footsteps. So each day for me, learning every single day, even when I go to my college, which is my day release, I still learn more and more and more every single day I'm with him. But it's good because I get to have that one-to-one contact with him. So if I ever am doing something wrong, he can always steer me in the right direction. I'm never really left on my own, which I really, really like. Yeah,
it's crucial.
It's good.
Kyle, I wonder, I personally like remodeling, and that's why I gravitated towards it, because it's different all the time. But one thing that I find as a remodeler is you're never really an expert at anything. Not an expert framer, you're not an expert trim guy, you're not an expert tile guy or a plumber, or whatever, but you've got it all, and you've got that whole knowledge, and I find it makes you a better problem solver. I also find it breaks up the monotony of being in a niche. So
agreed, yes.
That's my thoughts.
So agreed. I'm very adaptive. So I one day be doing stud work, and then I could be going off somewhere else and be doing a bathroom. For me, my day can change from day to day, but it is very similar to what you were saying, yeah. It's good. And I really enjoy it, so I'm happy wherever I go.
Yeah, definitely, Chris.
Yeah.
Cool. Will, what have you enjoyed so far in your apprenticeship in the union? Maybe a different experience than some of us. I don't think we have your audio there.
Oh, sorry, I cut out. But yeah, I enjoy pipe bending the most, electrical, like EMT. I find it so fascinating, satisfying once you figure it out finally.
Yeah, once you figure it out.
Yeah, well, it's obviously frustrating at first, messed up a couple, but it's really satisfying once you finally figure it out.
How was it? How were you treated when you messed up a couple? How'd that go?
It went pretty well. Like, I mean, everybody's nice, like they don't get too mad when you mess up, but like, you have to obviously do your best, but at the end of the day, they have to understand if you mess up, you're human.
Do you find that they recognize that you're genuinely trying and you're doing the best you can, and that's
yes,
and it's not like you're messing up because you're just
a
being
screw up.
slack or
yeah. I mean, I think you can generally tell that too by the way they work, like their work ethic and like the tools and the clothes they wear, the professionalism.
Right.
Awesome.
That's good to hear.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
That's cool.
Very good.
And Thomas, how about you? What have you enjoyed so far in your apprenticeship?
I think so. In Canada, the apprenticeship typically, if you do it efficiently, it takes about 4 years. So I'd say for about 3 of those years, I spent time with a custom home builder who also dabbles in spec building. So he'll buy lots, put up some houses, and so we get to do everything from the ground up. So the excavation, the foundation, the framing, finishing, exterior work, everything. And
I just
sorry,
want to
go
take
ahead.
you for a second. You said 4 years. So when I was in Germany, I went to Germany to visit. I was with Chris, I think. We were at a festival event.
Yeah.
Germany, I'm sure, is the same as the UK and Canada. It's actually a track after high school that you go into the trade, apprentice trade. Is that what you mean by 4 years? It's like a program?
That's right. So typically, it's so at the end of it, you get what we call a red seal ticket.
Yeah.
So that's basically just showing that you have, a certain amount of qualifications. And yeah, so you go through year 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that involves a bit of schooling every year, which is administered through different colleges through the provinces. So yeah, it's not very common because a lot of people, go to university after high school and stuff. It's just what it is nowadays. But it is another track, if you want, that you can take to get a post-secondary type of education.
When you go to that schooling portion, the educational part of it, what do they require you to take?
So depending on the year, it's about 7 weeks per year that you go to school for, and each year has different components. So in the first year, you might do, floor system framing, stair framing, and a bit of concrete work.
Wow, I love it.
Yeah, it's really nice. And then for second year, you would touch upon different subjects. So, and it's about, I'd say, 1 or 2 subjects per week that you try. So in 7 weeks, you learn a lot. There's a lot of material.
Dave's like, sign me up.
Yeah. It's a really nice way to just like outline it.
I think that is a great way of organizing that kind of education. Pairing site work with classroom work as well.
You do it in Europe all the time. It's awesome. Will, Kyle, do you see it in the UK?
In the UK, for us, it's a very similar system to Tom, but we do it weekly. So I spend 4 days on site, and I'll have a day where my college allocates me to go to them, and I learn my skill there. But it's about the same length as Tom. It can be a 3 to 4 year course depending on your chosen route, basically. Yeah.
Chris, we need to do that in the States.
I know, seriously. Kyle, that 1 day a week that you spend is at the college, is it like a lab or is it a classroom where you're?
It's a mix of both. So we spend half our day down in the workshop working out all our wood and everything like that, and then we'll spend the other half doing actual theory. So we're taking our practice that we've learned downstairs, take it upstairs into theory, and then we'll talk through it with our professor as well, which is really good.
So it's like a trade college.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
And for Tom and Kyle, are they when you're doing that work, are they trying to pull in and do some crossover stuff to things that you're doing in the field, or is it that all your classmates, like everyone's work is so varied and different that they couldn't really do that when you all get together?
It's tough. Like for us, the teachers, a lot of the teachers that teach this course are carpenters, which have done different parts of the trade, if you want. And so they, when they talk about a certain subject, they'll inquire to see in the class if everyone has done that. But typically, it's about 20 people per class. And what I've seen is you have typically 50% are in residential construction and 50% are more commercial and like union kind of construction. So high rises, big projects, things like that. And it's kind of, you start chatting with people, first week it's kind of tough. You don't really know anyone. And then the second week, you start to get used to each other and you get to learn a lot just by chatting with different parts of the trade. So
when you get that Red Seal certification, are you then technically licensed, or does that just make you more hireable?
So the Red Seal allows me to work anywhere in Canada and call myself a carpenter. Now in Canada, carpentry is not a licensed trade, unlike electricians or like boiler makers, for example. So you do have, a paper to show that you've done this course, but if you want to become like a licensed builder, you actually have to go through a separate type of licensing for that. And that requires, a bit of extra money and time to go into different courses.
Worth doing, I think.
Yeah.
If you get the time and money.
Mhm.
Chris, you're up, buddy.
Let's see, start with Will. Will, what's the most challenging part of your apprenticeship so far?
For me, probably the theory and the pipe bending, definitely. Like I don't do well just sitting in a chair and learning. I do like best by just doing, by figuring things out, problem solving.
And will you have to go through any tests, written tests or anything like that, or will it?
Yes.
You will.
In the union, well, to get into the union, you have to take an aptitude test, which is a test with reading and math. And then every year they have like a written test, and then like a physical, like pipe bending, electrical wiring test that you have to do.
Will, when you're apprentice now, what is the next step? Is it a journeyman?
Yes.
And then master electrician?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Apprentice, 5 years. And then I think after 5 more years, you can take your journeyman's or something like that. Yeah. Journeyman.
That's
and
a
then,
test.
yeah. And then after that, you can go for your master's.
Wow. That's awesome. Go for it. Just keep pushing.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just keep doing it.
Carolyn, how about you? What's been the most challenging part of your apprenticeship?
I would say that just learning like the language of carpentry, being on a job site, it's as if you're learning a new language. And so people are talking, in this rapid fire pace about, building concepts and tools and a whole amalgam of things that really are just not familiar, immediately familiar to me. So there's been a learning curve, but over time, it's gotten a lot better, for sure.
Have you done anything to learn those? It's nomenclature, right? So have you done anything to learn those terms, like get a book in carpentry and try to?
I have, well, a couple of things. One of my coworkers is a former Marine, and, he talked about how you should always be striving to have the job you don't have rather than the job you do. And so I've really tried to educate myself and also to be, on the day of, if things are over my head, I just go home that night and try to take some notes and go on YouTube and bookmark things. I have a few books that I utilize, and sometimes the books are a little tricky to utilize comparative to what we're doing on the job site. Well, that's where I found like YouTube and yourself have been super helpful, because you can really, zero in with a search engine and dig into a concept and see how a lot of builders are doing a singular thing. And then the next time we go back to doing that on a job site, I have a much better handle on it.
Have you ever brought something new to the job site in one of those things and had to?
I am a huge pain in the ass, my friend. I'm constantly bringing stuff and going, well, I saw this on this video, and this is the way you should be using a stone saw. And
Well,
I have
be careful with that one. Yeah. Be
Yeah.
careful telling them they're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
I will say note taking is huge. And I haven't seen it a lot across the board, but when I met Dave about, 6 months ago or whatever, Dave came to us, and day one, he was taking notes. And at first I was like, what is he doing? But it's smart because he references his notes all the time, but he also, even just making lists and having a small notebook and a pen, paper, pad, pencil, whatever, with you is smart. And that could go with any one of you guys. It's not a bad thing.
Carolyn, I think it's funny that you describe the challenge as like learning a language. I used to teach Spanish as a foreign language in high school, and the reason I carry a notebook around with me is because I find that the best way to learn a language is to hear it, to speak it, to write it, and to read it. To just use the words as you would use them. So I just carried a notebook on me since day one, since I started, because it was a way for me to, interact with these words that I didn't know anything about on another level. So I'm seeing it, I'm writing it, I'm reading it that night, and then I can use it the next day maybe.
Right on.
It's good advice. Really good advice.
Yeah, it's great. Kyle, how about you? What's been the most challenging part of your apprenticeship?
Oh, for me, it's working around other trades for me, because what I do is it's working around them. Also, how to explain this better? Where I work, we work in small confined spaces, and there's lots of work that needs to be done quickly. So once we're done in our area, once we've done framing or second fix, maybe an electrician might have to come in and fit something into the framework. And then it's sometimes going back once I said this doesn't fit, and then having to replace something or change something.
Or they cut something out. Yeah.
Oh, that's the worst. it's having that adaptability to go back to what you were doing about 3 weeks ago and go, what was I doing? What was I doing there? Oh yeah, I've got to remove that or change that. It's one of the most challenging things for me. I'm constantly taking pictures of what I do, so that I can reference back to it if I have to go back to something, which is one of the best things I've learned or taught myself to do. Just have that note of something, like you were saying earlier, make notes or have that mental or physical picture note is one of the best things I've learned myself to do. It's great.
Yeah.
Very nice. Nice. How about you, Tom? What's the most challenging part of your apprenticeship?
So maybe Rob and Chris, you can kind of relate to this, but have you ever had an apprentice where, you know, you kind of tell him what to do, how to do it, and then he goes and does his own type of thing? Kind of he takes, you know, I had a terrible case of that when I first started. Really. And I'm sure you guys know how frustrating that is. And I understand how frustrating for my bosses it was. So it's something that I've had to really work on, because personally, I'm kind of like, if you kind of tell me something, I'll go loose on it, and I might not do exactly how you said it. I might do it differently. So it's kind of like, you know, you got to have a tether. Especially when I first started, you had to have a tether on me, because it's like, oh, he's gonna get going. He's gonna be a bull in the china shop and kind of do his own thing. So that's like me personally, you know, it's been dangerous, and so I've had to really. That's the biggest thing I've had to work on.
You need to reel you in, huh?
Yeah. What was there a moment that did someone like grab you by the shirt collar and really give you a talking to, or like how did you come to that realization and change your way?
I think there's actually probably a pivotal moment where we had to, you know, we're framing a house, and it was a raked roof, like a single slope raked roof. So, you know, one side, the wall gets framed a bit higher, right? So your studs are a custom length. And I thought I had heard a certain measurement for the studs. And so this wall is, I don't know, 30 feet long or something, of 16-inch on center studs. And I cut them all the wrong length. And this, keep in mind, you know, in Victoria, this is a seismic zone for earthquakes. So your nailing requirements for sheathing, for example, are much, much higher. So, you know, you have so many nails in this wall.
Every 4 inches for that or something?
Exactly, right? Yeah, like 4 inches on center around the edges, and whatever, 8 inches in the field. So nail this wall up, stand it. And when you look at it, I mean, you guys could even picture, just look at the wall and see that it's not lining up where it's supposed to be. And anyways, the scene that ensued was just not pretty. So pretty sure that was the moment where I was like, okay, it needs to change, right? And so that note-taking thing, huge. Little notepad.
Yeah, if you're doing cutting, you have to write things down.
Yeah.
Or a block of wood.
Yeah,
right,
anything. I remember there's probably been 2 occasions where I'll show Dave something and I'll just let him go, or I'll explain him a task and let him go. Yeah. And as a boss, you have to kind of let go a little bit, because if you're not working with them and going through it and giving them constant feedback, you've got to accept what they do and or fix it, one or the other. So there's been a couple times where I've shown up and I'm like, that is completely not the mind's eye that I wanted. But in Dave's mind, he was doing exactly what I portrayed for him to do. And I was gone too far to catch him and change directions. So I think once we kept it and we moved with it, and another time we modified some things, but that's part of the learning process. And unless you're willing to be there every second, and you can't always be there every second,
that's right.
You've got to give them that leash and let them do some stuff. You know, that's a terrible example, because that was a lot of work to pull all those nails or cut them or whatever you had to do. But
I pulled them all.
I bet they made you pull them all. that was your payback, I'm sure.
Big time. Yeah.
So my question to you guys will be, how did you find your apprentices? Like, how did you get placed where you're at or with whom you're at? Let's start with Kyle. Let's go with you first.
So mine, I started with a previous company. I did work experience with them, and about a year later, I contacted them again. I said, I'd really like to do an apprenticeship with you. They were really happy, took me on board. Yeah, I then got to 11 months of my actual job. And at that point, I was thinking, I'm doing the same thing over and over again. I'm just making cabinets. I wanted a bit of a change. So I thought, I'll speak to them. I'll see how they feel. And they said, be honest with you, we don't really do much else. And I thought, do you know what? I'm young. I can still have the opportunity to change. And I thought, do you know what? Now's the time to go. I contacted another company and I basically said, this is what I've been doing for 11 months. I really want to get into this sector of carpentry. Would you be able to take me on as an apprentice? And they said yes. And I've been with them now for six and a half months. I've now been with them. And every day I've loved it even more. They were happy to change with my college because I was previously doing an apprenticeship with them. And the college were happy to switch it over to them. And it was all actually a really smooth process.
So this is all on you. You reached out to this company, all on you, not through the company.
Yeah, it exactly was. Yeah, and they when you do apprenticeships here in London, they expect you to be the responsible one. So you're the one who has to take everything. You have to transfer everything from the college across. It's a big thing, but the company that I'm now with, we're very understanding about the whole thing because they've had it previously with some other apprentices. But no, it was a really seamless transition. It was really good actually, and now I've been there with ever since.
Awesome. What time is it there? 1 o'clock in the morning?
It is 1 o'clock in the morning here, yes.
Yeah,
So I'm effectively on the
You're a
next
good man
day
for joining
you
us. You're
guys.
to work tomorrow.
Yeah, I thought I'd be up late.
Darylyn, how about you? How'd you get placed where you're at? Or how'd you find your apprenticeship?
So, I knew my boss, he's a climber. So I that's how I made the initial connection. And a lot of people at my job start out as kind of the third person. So there's the lead carpenter, and then there's, the assistant, and then there are just laborers. And so I was a laborer. And over time, there were opportunities to step up and to seek out, a position as an apprentice. And I really, had a lot of luck. And my boss was very open to me taking on more responsibility.
Awesome.
It's been good.
All right. Yeah, that worked out. Climbing helped out. Will.
Okay, so in high school, I went to like trade school half of the day. So like my second year, my teacher had a chance for students to go on co-op, to go in the field for that remainder of the day. So like I was 18 at the time, and like half of my class wasn't. So it was union, so you had to be 18. So I got the job. And then obviously when the school year ended, they said, like, if you want to stay with us, you obviously have to join the union. So yeah, yeah, I did.
Yeah. Awesome. Good job. Awesome. How about you, Tom?
So after I was done that 6-month program to start off with, I was dating a girl at the time, and some friends of her family had a business where they were doing like foundation and framing. So actually that custom builder that I currently work for had a business partner, and that's how I kind of got started with them. So, just starting off as a gopher, even though, you're a first year apprentice, you kind of help out, move lumber, move material, kind of do small tasks. It's just, how you kind of start out on a job site. So that's pretty much how I did it.
Did anybody take the time to show you things or try to bring you up?
Oh, absolutely. Like when there was layout happening, like a journeyman was doing layout, he'd kind of bring me along, holding chalk lines while there's lines being snapped, and kind of going through the process, explaining things as you're kind of doing different things. So there was always someone there to explain to you what you were doing and why you were doing it.
Cool.
Yep.
All right. Dave?
Got me off a lot of sequence, but.
Well, let me just ask you this question. How did you find your apprentice? Shit.
Oh, you're asking me how I found my.
Sure, why not?
Instagram. I was scrolling through Instagram and I saw Rob's post about anybody that was interested in a mentorship or an apprenticeship, and I wrote immediately. But prior to that, I had worked for 2 other companies, and we don't have a structured apprenticeship program. So it's really just kind of applying for whatever role that they have and explaining your skill set. And I would always explain whatever goals that I had for myself. But because we don't have those structured apprenticeships, not every company is set up to walk you through different tasks or show you, the why behind different projects. So I was really excited when I saw Rob's post because it gave me a chance to get into an environment where I knew I was going to have some kind of structure.
Chris and I talk about this all the time, and I know you know this already, Dave, but for the other people's benefit is here in the States, or at least in the Northeast, there is no apprentice program per se for carpenters. Now there's trade school high schools, and there's some colleges that have technical colleges, and they have co-op like you did, Will. But that's it. And so it's up to the generosity or open-mindedness of the business owner to bring people up, like Sweener, some of those guys, like-minded people like myself, Chris, who think it's important to bring up the next generation. And I've talked to guys, my peers at the lumberyard, where they're like, yeah, why would I want to train my apprentice to be as good as me or be close to as me? He's just going to be my competition. Well, that's the wrong mindset. The right mindset is bring your apprentice up and build your company and treat him right. Make sure they've got good benefit packages and all that, compensation, all that stuff, so that they stay with you. They may not, but hopefully they do. And you build your company, you build your kickball team, so to speak, and build the best team out there. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad you reached out, Dave. Chris, what about you? I mean, do you see same stuff?
Yeah, I see the same stuff like with Sweener. He's got people coming in who are asking for, looking for opportunities, and he's open to them. Same thing with, I've got a lot of friends in the industry who have businesses, remodeling contractors, builders, same thing. Like, people come to them and they try to be open if there's opportunity and the jobs are there, and the person is really willing and eager to learn, then they'll generally make a place for them. And everyone on this call, all four of you would, really super impressed with your ability and your interest and level of commitment to, to the trade and to the learning and everything. So that's what it seems like people are looking for. And I think that's what connected you, made you so excited about bringing Dave on, Rob. I remember when you first came across your desk, and I remember you telling me about that. So, when I first got in the trades, it was a totally different, it was different. I mean, I had to really work hard to try and
Carry
find,
lumber, push a broom. That's it.
yeah,
Right? Look at
that
coffee.
was it. And I didn't know, there was no real path, and I didn't know what, I did a lot of everything, and did work for different people throughout my career. So I got to learn a lot, but having that path that you guys have, and especially in the UK and in BC, is pretty great. It's pretty awesome.
You have to be your own advocate as apprentices. You really do have to advocate for yourself. Speaking of path, Dave, I think you wanted to talk about that.
When this question's for all of you, but when you first began your apprenticeship, did you expect to hit the ground running, or did you expect to kind of ease into doing different things? Carolyn, why don't we start with you?
I would say ease into stuff, doing a lot of demolition, a lot of, carrying bags of concrete, carrying lumber, and then, learning how to use a miter saw and a table saw, learning how to rip lumber. And, I would say it's been a pretty good arc of skill building. I feel pretty lucky in that regard.
Carolyn, did you find it was difficult entering? It's a male-dominated industry, right? So were you welcomed? Did you have any difficulties?
No. Maybe it's because it's the Hudson Valley. Maybe it's because I lucked out, but, maybe it's because I come from a blue collar background. I think that is some of it. I like heavy metal, and, but no, it's been very cool. And, there's been one or two instances in the past where something like foul, has occurred, but in general, you know, and those people don't last. You know, the core group in my company who've all been there for a while are just wonderful guys.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Kyle, how about you? What were your expectations when you started?
My company, when I first started, they basically said, we want to see what you've got, so we can build you from there. They didn't expect me to jump straight into being their full carpenter, knowing all the skills, knowing everything. I was always told that if I didn't know something, tell someone so they can then teach me. They never expected me to know anything I would never have been expected to have been taught previously. There were some things that you taught yourself that over time you think, right, that's a basic skill, and I had to teach myself those things. But that came along with learning from my head carpenter who I worked with. But everything else was pretty seamless actually. They were really smooth in how everything worked, and it's been really good. Yeah.
Great. Tom?
Trying to think here. Yeah, I guess, you know, you always want to be doing, especially when you first start out, you're so excited, something new, you know, it's stimulating for you. So I think, you know, you want to be doing the hardest things first. You know, you want to be the first one there. You know, you're a keener, you want to go try different things and stuff, but then
You want to prove yourself.
What's that?
You want to prove yourself, right?
Exactly. And I think that's all part of it. But then, you know, when you know, sometimes it might happen when you're given a task that you maybe asked for, but then, you know, you get to the task, you realize, hey, this is just way above my head. I'm going to need some help. And that kind of humbles you in a sense. And it kind of shows you that, hey, you have so much to learn. Especially, you know, I mean, it might be different for certain trades, but carpentry, you know, huge trade, right? So many things going on in that one umbrella. And so if you kind of specialize in one thing, you know, you realize you may lack in another. So it's just kind of, once you figure that out, it's just understanding that, you know, there's always new things to learn, and it's always important to self-educate.
I apprenticed with a couple different guys, and I ended up with the best guy, and it was a couple of years in, and when I was with him, my first day, I'm thinking, I know a lot now because I've been with these other dudes, right? So this guy has forgotten more than I'll ever know to this day. I remember being so humbled working for this guy, and I remember saying to myself, I'm going to prove myself. I'm going to learn everything I can. I'm going to be a sponge. I'm going to soak up every bit of knowledge I can. But what I did in between was I worked my ass off, and I ran. So if he asked for something, I ran. Like in the van, can you go get the extra recip saw? I would run to the van and run back. I was exhausted. I'd go home and go to bed. I'd skip dinner sometimes. But I impressed him with my energy level and my enthusiasm enough, because he told me this later, obviously. He shared it with me, but I ran, and what I lacked in knowledge and skill, I made up with energy and trying to think about next steps. What does he want next? What are we going to be doing next? After we finish this, what are we going to be doing? And I'd ask a question, then I'd be trying to set that up too while I'm doing whatever he's asking me to do. And eventually it paid off for me. So
Sure.
I didn't hit the ground running, that's for sure.
I'm not sure. This may be a leading question, but I'm not sure many people hit the ground running. I think it is a series of steps that you have to go through. Will, how about you? What were your expectations when you started your apprenticeship?
Well, I kind of tried to ease into it because, well, obviously I got in through my high school, you know, I didn't want to hurt the reputation of the high school, you know, and have other kids not have that opportunity. But also I had the background from like my dad. So like if I needed help, you know, I would go home and obviously ask him or go on YouTube. And so, yeah, that's
YouTube
just show,
University.
yeah, just, you know, try to do your best and fix your mistakes yourself.
Awesome. I like it. Chris, you're up.
Wondering about role models. Who's your role model, and how do you define a good boss or a mentor? Let's stick with mentor. Do you have a mentor in your job, and how do you define a good mentor? Kyle, let's start with you.
So my mentor, that's a hard one. My mentor is a guy named Basil. He's actually not from the United Kingdom. He's actually Romanian. He's actually, yeah. So he came across, but no, he's my mentor. I'd say he's actually a very good mentor to look up to, because despite not being from the UK, he's still learned all of the standards from the UK, and it's his like willingness to learn another country's standards which makes me like look up to him. And he's just one of those mentors you think, yes, I trust everything you say. And Nawali is one of those people who I think, I can trust anything you say. I'll go with what you say. If you say something's right, I believe you, it's right. And it's just having one of those people to trust in is one of the best things I've got. And when he's one of the best people on site, in my belief, because of it.
That's a great one. Trust. That's key. That's huge. Key. Cool.
Trust is
Very
huge.
cool.
Yeah. Loyalty.
How about you, Carolyn?
Well, the lead carpenter I work with, Alex, who's a Canadian, is definitely my main mentor because I'm with him 8 hours a day. But I definitely, anytime the other crews from my company are working on the same job site, I try to pick people's brains during lunch and see what people are doing, and use really everyone on the job site as an opportunity to gain some kernel of knowledge. Those even folks who are new, because they may have something that they learned at another job or from their parents that like is really a good way of doing something.
Carolyn, does he see himself as a mentor or teacher or?
Yeah, I think at times,
Yeah.
I think at times, it's complicated. There is competition on job sites. People
Sure.
are trying to bring the shine to themselves, and
There's no egos, right?
I'm the low gal on the totem pole in some circumstances, and I totally appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. How about you, Tom? Who's your mentor?
Yeah, I'd say I've had a lot of mentors throughout my apprenticeship. I'd say my current boss right now, he's very, he's always watching the details. He's a carpenter as well. He's been through the same program as me, and he has his general contracting business now. And he comes in and he's like scrutinizing. He may leave you to do the work, and not watch over you, but he might come in afterwards and kind of just be like, hey, why did you do this or why did you do that? And so I think it's very important for a mentor to be, on your case, not all the time, but come in and check on things. And not only is he a mentor when it comes to the trade and the craft, he also, he runs his own business. So, and that's a huge aspect, if you kind of, like I personally would like to branch off and have my own business. And so I think having someone who does both is a great mentor to have.
Out of you four, who wants to own their own business and run their own company? Do you aspire for that eventually? So
Yep.
two, three, four, three of us. I got a question for you. My you guys know what a sand dial is, the timer with the sand?
Yeah.
My sand dial's empty. So so we're gonna wrap this up. We're closing in on 40 minutes. This has been great. I could talk for another 2 hours, but I want to respect everybody's time. Talking about branching off, owning your own business, talking about good mentors, talking about bosses and business owners. 2 words, describe the 2 best features that you like out of your boss. There might be some features you don't like, but what are 2 of the things that you like that your boss does? Will?
Well, obviously, like the kindness and the willingness, the willing for them to teach you, like from your mistakes or just from their knowledge, to not get mad at you when either you mess up or
What do you mean by
like
kindness? Is that what you mean by not getting mad at you?
yeah, or them teaching you like a better way to do something, to make it faster.
So you feel safe to fail, basically. You feel safe to try, but you know that you're like they're gonna have your back and you're gonna be.
Yeah, you're gonna still have a job most likely.
2 words: hard, dedicated.
Define hard.
Hard expectations. If that person sets their own expectations, they expect you to meet them. And if they're high standards, then you just gotta, you're with the right person.
What if they're low standards?
I think that involves, having a bit of common sense and understanding that, what you're doing might not be the best. I think, even if you don't have the full knowledge of your trade, you still should be able to look at things and be like, hey, this is probably not the best way it could be done. So, yeah.
Dave, put you on the spot.
You stole one of my words there, Tom. Expectations. I like expectations. I like when somebody sets an expectation for me, especially somebody who's in charge of steering me and guiding me, or a teacher or a mentor. So expectations, and then respect. Guys who treat their tools correctly and treat their employees correctly and treat their clients correctly and are always thinking about presenting themselves as a respectful person is huge for a mentor or an employer of mine.
Kyle.
I'd say encouraging and patient. My boss, he's always willing to take the extra time and be patient with me to teach me something. And he's always encouraging me to do something more or strive to be better while I'm at work. So it's like the little things in my eyes. So those two words do stand out for me, definitely. Encouraging and patient.
Chris?
I was going to say trust and patience. Someone I can trust, who has my back, who's going to allow me to make mistakes and is going to teach me. And then patience, someone who's willing to just let me grow as I need to.
That's been a common denominator here. Carolyn, you're last, but bring it up. Close it.
Oh my God. I think everyone has said it, like at the end of the day, my boss showing up at the job site and looking at our work and saying that's a really good job is an incredibly satisfying feeling.
Feedback? Positive feedback?
Yeah. And I get harsh feedback too.
That's important. You need it. You need both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who here, after their apprenticeship or if they put a certain amount of time in, who here is going to stay with the company they're at, you think, or would like to? You think you'd try to stay on?
100%. I would.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah. I'm the same as Carolyn. Yeah, I'm going to be staying with mine as long as I can be.
Okay. All right. Guys, don't hang up. Stay on the line for a minute. I'm just going to close the recording portion of this video. I want to thank all of you guys for joining us tonight. I know you're all YouTube subscribers. Thank you so very much for your support on YouTube. I appreciate it. I love when you guys comment. And I hope that everybody out there finds this interesting. There are 5 apprentices here tonight. You got some pretty good insight on the trades. I think we got some home runs here with the people that we picked. But thank you and have a great night, everybody.